All right, we are live, the Meat Mafia podcast, back in action here with two of Jersey's finest. We have Salazzo and the one and only Gerry Defilippo. Boys, how are we doing?
Can you call me Tony Soprano? Can I be my name?
You can be Tony Soprano. Do
I need to make a burner on Twitter and follow along as Tony Soprano? I think I have to.
I would have assumed you've already done that by now, but you're more than welcome to join.
I think I'd be pretty lethal with a burner. I could have some fun with that. I have to. We'll explore that. We'll explore that option.
Soprano.
I love it.
My favorite show. Howard, please, can you tell him how much I watched of that while we were roommates?
I think between that and WWE, and for the audience, we probably need to get into this. Gerry and I were college roommates freshman year, so that's the connection here. And Gerry has gone on to build his own performance, strength and conditioning performance business in New Jersey. And so he's had a ton of success, and we're excited to have him on the podcast. But he does have a slight addiction to WWE and The Sopranos.
And I'm gonna say it as an American to not confuse people. I love mozzarella, and I knew you were gonna go there with that part of the conversation. That
was your holy trilogy's freshman year. Mozzarella, WWE, and The Sopranos.
So I have really bad eyes, just to give you some additional context to this whole thing. And I'm gonna give you. I'll tell you why I'm telling everybody this. We had our freshman year dorm, we had like the big opening closets, and we pushed them together and put the TV on top of the big closet. So I didn't have my glasses on. It must have been like 10:30 one night, and it was a Monday Night Raw was on for anybody who follows wrestling. And we had made a Whole Foods trip. Anytime my parents would come up to visit, they would take us to Whole Foods, and I bought like the little container of the Citadel and we had it in the little fridge, and I didn't have my glasses on, so I guess I wanted to like see the TV. So I'm like standing in front of the TV using the closet as like a table, and I have like the fork, and I'm just like it's at my face height, and I'm just looking at the TV, just eating the cheese
and just shoveling the moose into the mouth.
Yeah, he's just looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, what is going on here? And like, poor guy was probably floored, like living with a creature like me. It was like probably like you go to the zoo for years, then you get to actually like live with one of the animals that's like inside the enclosure. But that, like, I think you mentioned that to me like every other time we talk, you bring that up.
It's so funny. I can like distinctly see it in my mind. It's also just one of the funniest memories.
Look, Gerry was ahead of his time because the moose is a Meat Mafia approved food. It's potent. So I think he knew what he was doing from a young age.
And creature is absolutely the wrong word. Gerry is a complete specimen. So
I think we'd be remiss not to talk about this. You had a definite impact on a lot of good habits that I think I developed, even beyond just our time together, because I only spent 2 years at Babson, and then I left. We roomed together the first year, and I think honestly, like, it's one of those scenarios where like people become even closer after they don't even live together anymore. Mm-hmm. Harry broke my heart. He came up to me. It was like March. What was it? When do you decide where you live the next year? Like March, April, the year before?
April, something like that.
Yeah. So he comes up to me. He's like I was like he was about to break up with me. And he's like, hey, like, I was talking to my sister, and she thought like, it's good like to live with different people because you like get to experience different things and like go through different stuff. So I'm like the crazy girlfriend, like, did I do something wrong? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm sorry. Like, what, all this other stuff. He's like, dude, like, it's not like that. Like, she just giving me advice, like, to live with different people and get different points of view and perspective. So he ends up living in a triple with Bennett and Casey, two absolute beauties. And I was probably there like twice, 3 times a week hanging out. And I lived with an absolute menace, Shea Rosadino.
Legend. One of Babson's finest.
Yeah, like you remember when he was trying to fight the fire truck? He was so hammered he thought that the fire truck he was looking at, which was his own reflection, was a person trying to fight him. And he was like squaring up, looking at him as his reflection in like the side of a fire truck. I never forget that. So yeah. Anyway, back to off my tangent. I remember like a lot of the things, like you just were always very regimented with your schoolwork, and I think we were like two of the best students in our class on the baseball team. I don't know if that's saying too much, but we definitely were two of the more dedicated kids in terms of grades.
Well,
so,
I remember you always being like the wordsmith, being able to craft like these insane essays, like basically seamlessly, like in a handful of minutes, you would have like these amazing papers that you would get amazing grades on. And I'm sitting there just shaking my head, trying to figure out what you're doing differently. So I feel like we had a good thing going there for sure. And definitely both had great, a lot of good memories in that room, but also just like a lot of positive momentum was built off that first year, I think.
Yeah, it's actually funny too to see a lot of the stuff you guys tweet about, like saunas and like routines and stuff, because we were doing that stuff back then. There was a sauna at Babson. I remember freshman year we were going to that thing pretty routinely. Like you and Bennett loved it. I know that. Like I remember that.
Always.
Yeah. So it's just cool. Like it's cool to see you guys. Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Bennett probably wasn't lasting too long in the sauna, because we went up with him in Vermont. He had like 5 minutes before he would pussy out. So.
Well, dude, we would stay there for a while, I feel like.
Yeah, there were days where we would go there for over an hour.
I'll say what's safe? Like what's even the safe?
So that's when I usually do like 20-minute sessions, 3 rounds.
I didn't want to lead because I thought you think I was like a pussy. I was like, I'm not getting out, bro.
When you go with someone, you're like, okay, I kind of got to follow their lead. And it's almost like this first one to break mentality.
Yep.
You got to set the expectations, 20 minutes, go take a break, go back in for another 20. So we got really into like the sauna cold plunge, Gerry, and the cold plunge is a game changer. I love it for recovery. It's fantastic. And, that was something that we didn't have back in school, but definitely added that to the routine. So
Rogan's big on that, no?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gerry, do you for recovery? Because sometimes I wonder pitching how my arm would have recovered if I was implementing more of like the sauna cold plunge. Do you ever have your athletes do anything like that from a recovery perspective?
So like from the point of like what we have available to us and that kind of stuff, and like what the kids have, like unfortunately, like the sauna mainstream part of it, like where how accessible is a sauna if you're not like a member at a nice gym, right? Like it's not like the easy thing to come across, but I advocate for it. And like I tell, the kids it's definitely beneficial just from like the things I've heard. I know like Kevin Love had really good experiences with it, over like the course of his off seasons and the contrast of it, like going from one to the other. Obviously, like we're talking about, there's a lot of benefits to it. I know there's been listen, like the whole, like the rice thing, when you get hurt, like raise ice, like the whole ice injury thing has kind of gone the other direction. Like acute, maybe right after you get hurt, you want to apply ice to something, but the data is showing that it's not as beneficial as once believed. But this is completely different in terms of like the shortness of it, where you get more of that acute effect from it. And there's been like a lot of research done to the benefits of the contrast from the temperatures. So like, it's definitely something when they ask me about it, I'm like, yeah, if you can do it, like, it's great. It's just a matter of like a lot of these people that are on social media talking about it, I feel like they have the financial means to like build their own saunas at their homes, which a lot of kids don't have the luxury for. Like I think, like I've seen some TikTokers even like they've built saunas in their backyard, which is pretty cool.
Gerry, let's take a step back here and dive into your story a bit.
Yeah.
So you're starting your gym, and your background coming out of school is in business and nutrition or sports science. Is that right?
No, so I was just purely business.
Hmm.
So when I transferred from Babson, I went to Rutgers Business School. I was a management major, and that was it. So I kind of just, make a long story short here, I had an elective class my junior year. It's called executive leadership. And it was unique in the sense that it was not like an actual school professor. It was these three coaches, I guess you could call them. They had like a business on the side that where they just were like life coaches for people. And they had this class where it was like 20 students. I remember going in day one and I was like, oh, I'm just going to sit on my laptop in this class and like not do anything like every other class. And they were like, all right, everybody close your laptops. No laptops or cell phones are going to be used at all during this class. And it was one of those like 3-hour classes, like those brutal 3-hour classes. And I was like, oh shit, like, how am I going to get through this? And they basically have you like assess your entire being. Like, who are you? Why do you work the way you do? What are you looking to get out of life and all this other stuff? And I mean, I just kind of through going through this process of this class over the course of a semester realized like, oh, like what, like they asked you, like, what would you do if money wasn't an object? Like, what would your career be? And I was like, I like training people. Like I'm into lifting and all this other stuff. And they had you make a vision board for like your final project of the year. And I made this entire vision board. I still have a picture of it. I think actually I still have it. Like I kept it because it was like pretty important to me. I think it was I called it Challenger Fitness Systems or something like that. And it was blue and orange colors. So I changed the colors to black and red, but I had to lay out like a photo, like it was pictures. You couldn't use words. And you had to use pictures of like the things you had to do or accomplish, or the personal things, like the ticks that you had that you'd have to get over to do what like your goals were.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, legitimately, this is not an exaggeration. I think I did everything but like one of the things that was on that board to get started and get to where I've gotten to. So that class was my junior year. It ended in December. By January, I had enrolled in a certification course online for a cert. I did another cert in person in April of that year, and it kind of just went from there. That was it.
Wow.
And with those certifications, you were looking to build your business right after school, correct?
Yeah. So I this is interesting too. So went to Rutgers. I played a year of baseball. And I just kind of talked to my hitting coach at the time who had a facility in Jersey. And I show up like a year. I don't play my senior year. So like my academic senior year at Rutgers, I don't play baseball because I was like, I want to start getting this going. And I start doing all these certs and stuff. Summer, like it was like June of that year, I show up at his place and I'm like, you guys have no strength conditioning. Let me like set up space here, sublet your space. I'll give you like part ownership of the business and I'll start to train people. And basically didn't work out with these guys. Like we just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So I had moved some equipment into their place and I just pulled it out after like a month. And I ended up going, I had a pretty bad ankle injury going into my sophomore year at Babson. I get surgery and all this other stuff. And that ankle injury was like, it was like raining, I think. And it was like my ankle was bothering me that day. So I text my PT, who I've known since I was like 12 years old. And I'm like, hey, I need to come see you. My ankle's bothering me. And I was like, maybe I could talk to you about a couple things, like career things, while, I come to see you. I go there that day, like right after I move all my stuff out of this baseball place. I'm like super disappointed. It didn't work. And I'm like, hey, ankle, whatever. It's like, what have you been up to? I was like, I'm really trying to get into the strength and conditioning field. Do you have any advice for me? Like, you're a PT, but like, you're CSCS certified and you guys have your own business. Like him and his two partners have their own business. It's like, what do you recommend? He's like, oh, like it's good timing. The guy we had here that was training some people out of our place just left. We had a disagreement on something. Like, why don't you hang around, intern, so to speak, and just kind of learn from us, and you could start to train people here if you want. So I end up doing that. I'm there for a month, and he comes up to me and he's like, we just got a contract with this hockey organization down the street, and they're looking for a strength coach. You're going to get paid like garbage money, but it's a job. And, you know, they're also willing to negotiate with you. They were just building out this like brand new space in the rink. So, which is where I currently operate out of. And he was like, you could negotiate like low rent with them because you're not going to get paid much and whatever. So I ended up going to do that. I think I made like $357 a month for that job. And I had like 2 people I was training. So that's kind of how the whole business thing got started. That was really the short abbreviated version of how that all took place.
That's amazing. And I'm curious, I think my question was leading to this one, which is, you know, you're coming out of school, you have these certifications, you're launching your business. What are the building block philosophies that you're bringing to the table for, you know, you're training athletes, but pretend you're just, you know, talking to someone who's just getting started and you're a coach. What principles are you trying to instill from the get-go?
So you want to talk, I can do both. You want to talk more from like a building a business standpoint, or like
I would say
being a good coach?
I would say more so from someone entering the weight room for the first time.
Okay.
And you're the quiet voice in the corner trying to get them to come in consistently and do, you know, the minimum level of work. Like what are you telling them, and what sort of plan are you putting in front of them, and advice would you be giving them?
Yeah, I think this is where like the marriage of doing things that are good for you and doing things you like is really important. If you don't like the stuff you're doing in your program, you're never going to show up, especially if you're not a motivated person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that quote? Like, discipline gets you further than or gets you places motivation can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a disciplined person, you're going to have days where you just go to the gym because you know you need to,
Right.
and you're regimented and it's your routine. If you're not there yet, and I say yet because like I think I do believe you can build that. Like it's a habitual, like it could be built. If it's not like in you intrinsically. I think you need to make sure that, like I said, you're doing things in your training that you enjoy, at least to begin with. If I have a person come in and they've really never trained before, like we don't train a lot of Gen Pop people, but like the couple that we have, if it's gone anywhere and it's been anything that's lasted long term, they need to be doing at least some stuff they enjoy in their training.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my biggest piece of advice, if you're a coach, is like give a little bit on the, like if doing curls, like if Harrison came to me and was like, I want to start training, and he doesn't like go to the gym a lot, and like doing curls was like, he liked how his arms felt and it made him feel confident. And, you know, that was something he enjoyed. Like I'd be an idiot not to put that in his training if it's going to make him enjoy it and be consistent. And then I think once you build that, there's like even that buy-in, I guess you could say, it's much easier. And then I think from like the actual like technical standpoint of the things you should be looking to do, I think like the best thing that I've ever seen was like the best reps and sets prescription you can give somebody is 3 times 52, like 3 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Just in terms of like the people that go 7, 8, 10 days in a row and then burn out, don't last. It's like you turn it into a 3 to 4 day a week schedule for yourself. So number one, so like if you're training 3 days a week and you're, you know, at a moderate to even less than moderate fitness level, I would say like train like a main movement pattern, get a push, a pull, a squat, a hinge movement, like build your program around those types of things. If your goal is just to feel better and move better and be stronger in your everyday life, 1 to 5 reps, you know, good tempo. You know, I think a big part of getting somebody to want to do something consistently is having a way to present results to them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go in there and you say, okay, like day 1, we're going to hold as long as you can above the chin up bar. Like I'll give the example with athletes off the top of my head. Like we do vertical jump testing and sprint times and stuff. If you show a kid after 6 weeks that those numbers got better, they're in. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they're locked in. They're good to go. They're going to show up. They might have a bad day and not want to go, but they're going to be there because they want to get the numbers better and they want to do better than their peers. They're competitive. So can you create that? You're not an athlete anymore. Can you create that for yourself still?
Right.
Gerry, the curls example is interesting, how you're looking at your athletes or your clients and finding things that they like to do, even if it's not necessarily going to help them from an athletic performance, but just to get them to want to go to the gym and lift so you can build that 3 to 4 days. That's really, I've actually never thought about that before.
Yeah, no, it's like I had a guy reach out to me a couple years ago, like, hey, my son wants to come train 4 days a week. Like, as a business person, that's good money, right? Like, that's you want that kind of person in there. 4 private sessions a week. We don't even really do a lot of private training anymore. It's more like kind of all the kids come in and they have their stuff and whatever. But he was like, 4 days a week, we want him to train, we're ready to go, whatever. But he only really works with kettlebells. Like, do you do a lot of kettlebell training? I was like, bro, we love kettlebells. We do tons of kettlebells. Like, I got kettlebells. Like, kettlebells are here. There's like, we got different colors. Like, kettlebells are great. We're in. Let's do it. And I just did whatever the hell I wanted with him when he got there.
Yeah.
Versus like you shoot yourself in the foot and you're like, well, actually, like, we can do the trap bar and we're going to do the trap bar because it's going to get results. And the guy's like, nah, I'm going to go to the place that does kettlebells. No, tell him you're going to do kettlebells. He comes in, I laced some extra kettlebell exercises into his program in the beginning and like texted the dad some videos. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, when the results were there, I could literally tell the kid to go on the roof and climb trees and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You built that trust with him over the 4 to 6 weeks. And he's like, Gerry's my guy. He's got me. I'm seeing results. And then the kettlebells isn't even really a factor anymore. Right.
Yeah. It's like, why shoot as a coach? Like, I hate to some people are like, oh, that's dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're going to somebody for their expertise. Why are you going to tell them how to train you?
Yeah.
That's like the most frustrating thing that parents do is they give you their money and they want to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and also I think that you're tapping into something that's beyond just, hey, this is the perfect program to get XYZ results. You're tapping into the aspect that's, before we start getting into the perfect program that I know in the back of my head is eventually what we're leading to, I'm going to get you excited to be here and enjoying being a part of this community in this gym that I'm building, which I think for more, you could apply that across more things and almost everything in life, work, nutrition, gym, it all applies. If you're excited to be there, you're going to kick ass and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to see the results. And I'm sure that's what you've seen with the kids who show up at your gym, Gerry, that do well. They're probably the kids who are having the most fun too.
Yeah. And it's also, 100%, like I have kids that literally like, they would live there if they could.
Yeah.
Like I have kids that finish their lift and like go watch other kids lift. Like, no, we have a junior in high school that is like best friends with a 8th grader, maybe 7th or 8th grade. And like in the gym, like it's just hilarious. Like the younger one got pissed today because the older kid benched and didn't tell him he was going because he wanted to watch. Like I go to video of him doing his set, like, because everyone knows now, like, because the kids start to talk your lingo and your language about the programming. So you have like this little 13-year-old going around being like, oh, you're going for your working set? You're just like, you're laughing, you're like, oh, that's awesome. But like the kid did his bench and he walks over, he's like, oh, you did your heavy set? You didn't tell me. I wanted to watch. Yeah. And then you got the older, the junior that's accounting for him, so he makes sure his tempo is slow enough on his like chest supported row or whatever it is. Or an athlete's going for their 1 rep max on their trap bar, and like the other 20 kids in the gym, literally, I have videos of it. They crowd around to watch. And it's cool. Like it really, it's special. Like what the community that gets created, or like you have moments, like I've had moments where a kid from one town in New Jersey comes in and he's become really good friends with a kid that plays a different sport that lives 6 towns over, strictly because they came to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And I think the other thing too that's important is like, whether it's a company in the corporate world or a gym or whatever it is, it's like easier. Like I can be a little more strict and kind of set in my ways. Like we have a process here. We're going to do it this way and you're going to come in and do it this way. And they're a lot more likely to just be like, okay, that's fine, because there's 150 people that have gotten results that they want to get. So
Right.
like when me in 2016 and 2017, there was a little more wiggle room. Now it's 2022 and you're like, listen, dude, like I'm trying to help you here. Don't waste your parents' money, or to the parent, don't waste your own money. I'm telling you, this is the way we do things. And that's gotten results for 1,000 other kids. Like, just shut up and come train.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you get more of an ability to kind of, throw your weight around a little bit once you've done that track record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as you've done this you've been training for what, almost five plus years at this point?
It'll be 6 in August.
Wow.
That I've had Challenger. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're coming up on 6 years. Are there any just like principles or lifts that you stick to where you're like, look, I'm not going to guarantee that this works, but if you're one of my athletes and you're doing this consistently, like you will get stronger and more athletic?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's actually funny. The more you go through it, and the more people you've helped, and the system, but like the more set system you have, you kind of like, I look at parents all the time and I'm like, oh, just give me 6 weeks, man. Like, you're going to be looking at a different kid when you look at your kid in 6 weeks. And I'm like, I'm not saying that from arrogance. I'm saying that you've seen it happen enough times where like you develop enough trust. Like, I remember the first program I wrote, like, you want to put 600 exercises on it because like you're not confident in what works. Like, when you get confident and you see something work, it's like, it's comforting because you say, okay, these are the 6 different things I'm going to do, versus when you're starting out and you want to put 100 things on there because you're not sure what actually is going to do it. I would tell you, for the younger athletes, like, I'm team trap bar, like, all the way. The learning curve is way lower than a regular barbell deadlift. We don't really do a lot of cleans. It was just never something that I was comfortable with or did a lot of. So, and in my mind, like, when you have a gym full of kids, like, I can worry a lot less if someone's going to get hurt, doing a trap bar or a loaded jump, versus, doing cleans. The trap bar deadlift's been huge. Like, bring me a kid that can barely lift 200 pounds on it and give me a year and a half to get it to 400 pounds. Like, you're going to see gigantic improvement in their vertical jump and their sprinting. Once we get to that point, then you start to split hairs and do other things. But like, you get an athlete better at a trap bar deadlift while they're sprinting and jumping, every week, and you're going to have, some pretty significant results. In terms of like the number one thing though, that I would say all athletes should be doing, it would, like I mentioned, sprinting, like the sprinting, max speed, full rest in between, and the loaded sprinting, I think are 2 of the most beneficial exercises that a young athlete can do. In terms of like the power improvement, and like, obviously if you play a sport, a team sport, especially, like, getting faster is gonna be one of the biggest benefits to you. Just remembering that the kids aren't power lifters, right? Like, if I send you out to the baseball field with a 650 trap bar deadlift and you can't move and you like don't know how to move your arm, like that's like, great. Like, what did that do for me? So like, while that's like one of my favorite lifts for strength, I would say, like, if athletes are sprinting and doing loaded sprinting regularly, they're gonna have a hard time not getting better, just in terms of like their lower body power.
And Gerry, explain loaded sprinting. What does that look like?
Yeah, so you have the athlete attaches a harness. Like, we have sleds where they put it around their chest and clip it. And the sled, it extends back like 10, 12 feet. So you have enough room from the weight, and you put the weights on, and then you sprint. So it's slower, obviously. But it's kind of the idea of, you put that weight on behind you. Having a weight behind you opposing the direction you're sprinting in requires you to exert more force into the ground, which is one of the biggest ways to get a young athlete faster, is just getting them to put more force into the ground. And you basically just do your regular sprint with the load behind you. And it just helps increase what you put into the ground each time you make contacts with the ground, basically.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Would you have an athlete do the weighted sprinting and deadlifting on the same day?
It depends. So if you come to me and you're like, hey, I have 2 days a week to train, probably. Because like, we have 2 days or 1 day, like, I have to get everything done. So we might do, like, you come in, you warm up, you do loaded sprints, you do regular sprints, you do some jump training, and then you're going to do strength stuff because you have to get it all done. The younger the athlete is, the less that matters.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I had like, Harry, you drove a Ferrari and I drove a Kia, like you're going to have to go to the dealership and the mechanic and do more maintenance on your Ferrari and not drive it as frequently as my Kia. I can beat my Kia into the ground. It doesn't have a high enough output to just fall apart.
Mhm.
The higher your output is, the more sensitive you are to the workload and the rest time and I could have a youth athlete do a trap bar deadlift and probably go jump a vertical jump and it not be much less than it would be without the trap bar. But I might have an advanced athlete jump a 30-inch vert, go do a set of trap bar deadlifts or 3 or 4 sets, and then 20 minutes later go jump and it's to 26.
Mhm.
So like you're much more sensitive to that because your output's greater. Almost like, put in a business sense, you have more money invested in the stock market. So like the percent loss for your portfolio is gonna be greater than someone who's got 10 grand than you have 200.
Got it.
So like it matters, like you can definitely do both in the same session. It depends on what you're trying to get done and the age you are and stuff, but you absolutely can do it. There's a right way to do it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Gerry, one of the things that we talk about as the Meat Mafia is in the kitchen, having a cast iron pan, a Dutch oven, a good cutting board, just your basics. If you were talking to someone who's general population, what sort of things would you tell them to go out and invest in or not invest in? Like what's the no cost barrier? Like what could you do up to no cost to see progress? And then what would be like the first 1 or 2 things that you would invest in?
Yeah. So no cost wise, if you want to get really strong and you don't want to spend money on any weights, get a beach towel or like a regular towel that you would literally use to wash off, to dry off after the shower. And I put a bunch of videos together during COVID when everyone was doing the home workouts. If you have an immovable surface or something to pull against, it's not going to move anywhere and you can exert as much force as possible into it for like 6 to 10 seconds. You're getting the same neurological or similar neurological effect from a strength standpoint that you would moving heavy weight. So they're called overcoming isometrics. So like you get against the wall, right? Or like think about like I get into a push-up position and I throw this towel around my back, put my hands on it, and I press into the towel as hard as I can. And the towel isn't going to go anywhere. It's an immovable object at that point.
Right.
Like as much as it, like once it tightens up, unless you're like the Hulk and you rip the towel, but like it's not going to go anywhere. Or you have a truck and I can get into like a split stance, like I'm in a sprint, right leg forward, left leg back, hands against the truck. I can push into my front leg as hard as I possibly can to try to move the truck, even though it's not going to go anywhere, or a wall or whatever it is. And it's a process known as recruiting motor units. So basically like your body working with your brain to set signals to produce sufficient force to move an object. So that's what heavy weight does.
Yeah. I mean, it makes complete sense.
So if you didn't want to spend any money, overcoming isometrics. I literally during COVID, people went out to like Home Depot and bought like plywood and like some chains and handles and like drilled the chain stationary into the plywood, and you could grab the handles into a deadlift position and pull as hard as you can.
I'm just envisioning the Meat Mafia in my head, just everyone who's following us, just going and trying to move like immovable objects.
Yeah. So like if you want to do if you want to train at home and not spend any money on weights, I would tell you, do the thing I just told you with the towels. You could do, we do split RDLs, split squats. You can put the towel around like a banister on your staircase and do rows, like where you're pulling as hard as you can. Like do like a regular standing kind of pull of the towels with both hands, like a row position. Do all that 6 to 10 seconds as hard as you can for a few sets. That'll cover your strength side of things. And then if you don't have weight, time under tension is your best friend when it comes to putting size on. So, you could do a push-up 15. If I told you right now, do a push-up 15 reps, and I want you to literally squeeze your pecs together like your life depends on it for 3 seconds at the top of that range of motion, and then do a 3-second negative coming down. That's what, a minute plus of tension at least. So now I'm like hypertrophy wise, I can cover that with no weight.
Yeah.
I had kids doing squats with backpacks. If you do enough slow tempo, and you put enough thought process into it, you can get a lot done without weights. Now let's go to step 2, buy some bands. So
great investment.
yeah, number 3, even if you want to start spending a couple $100, get a power blocks. 5 to 90 pound adjustable dumbbells for $400, $500 versus spending thousands on regular dumbbells.
Yeah. And a kettlebell could be another thing that you throw in there. But again, outside of some of the basic kettlebell movements, you're going to want different weights for that kettlebell. So you could be kind of limiting yourself a bit on what you can do there, but
it'd be cool if someone made adjustable kettlebells.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Jerry.
Couple challenger kettlebells. Love it.
Yeah, I'll edit that part out so you can.
Yeah, no, you guys have seen Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yeah.
When he creates Lugal, he goes back in time and he makes his own Google. Or the guy he records all the Black Eyed Peas songs and becomes like a record, like a big time artist.
Yeah,
that's gonna be my Lugal moment.
Gonna be you with the kettlebells. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jerry, you were saying in terms of just recruiting size, it's not necessarily thinking about sets or reps. It's more so time under tension that you should be thinking about. Is that correct?
It's a big overall body of work, right? So you're taking the total tempo and time under tension for each rep. You're adding it up to how many reps you did for that set, and you're multiplying it out by how many sets you did.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. Like there's a big benefit in building size with heavy weights, 6 to 8 reps. Like you need heavier weights for the density and the thickness. Like you guys know who Larry Wheels is?
Yeah. Monster.
So obviously he's on every drug known to man. So like, I know that I'm not an idiot, but like independent of all that, the guy is an absolute 1 genetic freak, and 2, he works his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
And the size that he has developed that is like comparable to some lower level bodybuilders for bodybuilders while doing a powerlifting type program just goes to show you Ronnie Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the biggest bodybuilders ever. He changed the game, right? He came in there in terms of like that new era of mass monsters, 25, 30 years ago. Yeah. And a lot of his training was very heavy. So don't get me wrong. Like you need the heavier training if you really want to put on good size. Like there's going to be a benefit. Not that you need it. I'm saying like it's going to make it even better. But what I am saying from the point that you just brought up was from a total time under tension. So you got 12 reps in a set, right? What is your eccentric tempo? So like the negative. What is your isometric tempo? The change from eccentric to concentric, that isometric, like that hold position. And what is your concentric tempo? So let's say I'm doing a bench press, right? I take the bar off the rack. I do a 3, 2, 1 coming down to my chest. So that was 3 seconds right there where my muscles were contracted, right? The longer time under tension produces and yields more tears and all that good stuff. And that was a big influence for me early on in terms of like the work we did with athletes in terms of building size was Charles Poliquin. And he talked a lot about, 45 seconds to a minute of time under tension being ideal for hypertrophy. And that's for a set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So like we like to do accessories, 12, 15 reps, 3 to 5 second. We say negatives for the kids, so they understand. Like that eccentric portion, like you're doing a row, you pull up 3, 2, 1 into extension.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between putting really good size on versus doing 12 reps where you're just flying up and down.
And Jerry, accessories, you're just saying movements that aren't your main compound movements that are going to be more so your workout number 3 through 5 on a lifting day or something like that, right?
Yeah. So like you have your primary movements, indicator movements, whatever you want to call them. For athletes, we like to call them indicator movements just because we look at those as like, if those improve, other things that we're trying to improve are going to get better. So like, I'll give you the example with the trap bar. That's an indicator movement for us.
For sure.
Because if that gets better, we are putting our money on the fact that our vertical jump's going to improve.
Mm.
So we track the weights with that. So like Harrison, if I've been training you, or Brett, if I've been training you for, a year, I can go back to 52 weeks of data on a sheet that tells me every weight you've used for that main exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So we did 5 reps at 320 pounds in January of 2022. In May of 2022, I did 5 reps at 355 pounds, 360 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So 1, you don't need to really ever max anymore, because you're comparing progress of your working set weights and those reps. 2, you are accurately presenting the athlete or the person with a number that is reflective of what they can actually handle. So if I look at you and I say, okay, we're going to work to a 1 rep today,
Mm-hmm.
maxing out and working up to a 1 rep prescribed on percentages that I've accumulated over the course of training is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Maxing out is let's keep putting weight on the bar until I can't do it anymore. Doing a 1 rep where I say, okay, you did, let's do the math here. You did 8, I said 320 for 5, right? So generally speaking, a 5 rep set, I would say about 85% of your max. So that's going to tell me I'm estimating between 375 and 380 for your 1 rep.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can give you that number and we can build up to it. And I know pretty close to guarantee that you can do that,
Mm-hmm.
because I have this data built up, right?
100%.
So those indicator exercises we're tracking each week.
Gotcha.
5 reps, 3 reps, 2 rep, 1 rep. What weight did I use, right? The accessories, as you were alluding to, in a program structuring standpoint, we have primary movement or indicator exercise. We have supplemental movement underneath that. So that's the movement where we're going to say, okay, the trap bar, what exercise are we using following that that's of a similar movement pattern that's going to support and boost that? So maybe I say like trap bar deadlift is my primary movement pattern. Maybe a barbell RDL is my supplemental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And doing that, or a rack pull or whatever it is.
Right.
We even do we like to do low bar trap bar where you flip the bar over. So now the handles are lower and it's more of a hinge position versus the more dominant knee flexion you get in a trap bar.
Right.
So that's your supplemental, right? After that, you have accessories, like you said. So those 3 to 5, those exercises 3 to 5 after that might be, okay, we're going to target quads by themselves. We're going to target hamstrings by themselves, and we're going to build those muscles from a size standpoint, from a hypertrophic standpoint, to support the movements going back up the chain to our main movement.
Mm-hmm.
So for those exercises, we might be saying and this is conjugate programming. This is undulating conjugate, whatever you want to call it. Linear programming, think of every exercise or thing we're doing is for either strength, for power. I'm working on one attribute. Conjugate style programming is, I might work strength in my first 2 movements, but I'm working hypertrophy after that.
Gotcha.
And that was made popular by Louis Simmons, who just passed away, rest in peace. West Side Barbell, where he was doing heavy exercises for the first 2 movements and hypertrophy stuff afterwards to support those movements.
Would you ever do the reverse? Because I actually, and this is more of a personal question, I have gotten into doing hypertrophy training first to really work a certain muscle group, but to do it in the sense that I'm really focusing on just blood flow and getting good blood flow going, and not necessarily trying to, exhaust the muscle to fatigue, and then go hit the compound movements when my muscles are already pre-fatigued.
Well, so I think that point depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, so at that point, my goal is not to go hit
a PR.
I'm not going to go PR, but I am going to go focus on. So in this context,
you feel your muscles move. You feel a connection better.
Exactly. That's the reason why I'm doing it, is because I think that in certain instances, I'm more deeply connected with that, as you said, and feeling that contraction better than when I just jump into the compound movement and am pulling hard, but still, you don't really have that full tension, right?
Well, that's the beauty of this whole thing, is if you could present something like that,
yeah,
and you could tell me why
Right.
It makes sense for you for your personal goals, what you feel, and then it also has scientific basis to it. So like that makes sense. If I do a set of light goblet squats for 12 to 15 reps, and then I go do my back squat, like I'm going to feel those muscles working a little more. I've done some stuff to kind of get myself in a position where I'm feeling them work, and I'm doing some nice slow tempo. Because your goal is not to be really fresh and set a number. Right. With these athletes, our goal, the training, I like to tell people this all the time. We get caught up in the numbers from like I did this and it feels cool standpoint. Our goal is like, what's the biggest stimulus we could expose the athlete to? If that makes sense. Yeah. So like, if I can have a strategy that prepares my athlete to lift 375 versus the other strategy that on that same given session would maybe keep them at 360. 375 from a standpoint of getting faster, more explosive is more advantageous because it's giving them a higher threshold. So we talked about motor units before. Theoretically speaking, I have to recruit more motor units to pull for. Let's say my max was 415. You put 400 on the bar, you put 375 on the bar. The 400 is making me recruit more motor units. For you though, for the average gym goer, like, this is even how I train now. My training right now is way different than my athletes.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm doing supersets. Like it's two different things.
Yeah.
Like you are training to get, you can make the argument either way. Like obviously I know you guys prioritize, how you feel and all these things, like, which is excellent, but aesthetics are pretty important to you right now.
For sure.
Yeah. 100%.
You go to the gym to feel good, but you want to look good too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right. So for you, if you do those you pre-exhaust a little bit and then you go lift, and that gets you to feel your muscles better, expose them to a higher load, and the tension you feel is better there, that's going to help you look better. It's going to be better for your development of muscularly from like a hypertrophy standpoint. I don't care as much about that for these kids.
For sure.
And that's where the difference comes in. And I'm glad you brought up that example, because that is where people get caught up in I do it the right way, or you do it the wrong way, or you do it whatever. Why do you even do that? Why do you do it that way in the first place?
Right.
If you tweeted out that you did that, a person who trains athletes might go, that's stupid. Well, why is it stupid? It's stupid for the goals that you have.
Yeah, it's stupid because you're training your athlete to get a PR on a trap bar, to see that trap bar movement go up as an indicator movement so that they can see all
you're training so your hamstrings look good in your shorts in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're going to the beach soon. Come on.
Like there's a difference. Like there's a difference. Yeah. For me, like I'm trained. And this really bugs me in the sports performance world. Like, like skin in the game. Like you have to train the way your athletes train, so you know what you're giving them. Like, I don't know, dude. Like I can coach the hell out of a sprint. I don't sprint too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing supersets of cyclist squats with like a 60-pound dumbbell and like incline dumbbell bench press, and I could coach the shit out of a sprint. Who gives a shit? And I know people that are like really, really fast and have no clue about the biomechanics of a sprint.
Yeah, that's it's good advice, because I think that I probably fall victim to that mindset of like, you need to be practicing what you preach and skin in the game, but coaching.
Oh, you do. Like, I can't sit there and tell you to be dedicated to the gym if I don't do anything.
For sure.
I could.
But the coaching is definitely something where you do want to have you need some element of like, this is my body of work that I've done. And some of that, or all of it, a lot of it can come from the people you've trained, right? Or the results you've gotten through your training.
Well, so coaching's just that. It's coaching. Coaching isn't how well did you do the movement personally. It's how well can you get someone to do it. And if I am practicing what I preach, I'm coaching 100 kids a day, because my job, what makes me good at my job is getting someone better at doing something. And if I have 100 reps each day of getting someone better at doing something, I'm really well equipped to get someone better at doing something.
Yeah, you know
what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And that's my argument. Like I tweet about this all the time. Like I don't care if you play Division I sports or you got up into the AA or AAA in baseball, or you take your shirt off and you're cut up. Like you might have good genetics. What does that mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you take the goofy looking 12-year-old who trips when they walk and get them better?
Yeah.
You don't have no idea. You were gifted with that.
Yeah, it's a great point.
What does that mean to me?
Gerry, one of the things you touched on before, you said that you're a big fan of trap bar deadlift for your athletes. Are you a big fan of it just for the average gym goer as well, as opposed to trying to barbell deadlift? Because I feel like I see this in my gym all the time, people that are just like rounding their backs or not executing with the proper form. So I was curious, like for you, if you're going to deadlift, are you going to use the trap bar yourself?
Yeah, I will. I think it's one of those things where people in the average gym space aren't doing it because they don't really know about it. It's like it's not common.
Yeah.
Like I have this guy I train every Tuesday and Thursday. He's like in his mid-50s. I don't train I hate training. I got to be honest with you. Like I don't like training Gen Pop people. It bores me. But this guy's awesome. Like he's funny. Like he's really strong. Like I had him doing 5-second eccentric push-ups with 56 pounds of chains on the other day. Like he's strong. Like he was a Wall Street guy. Like he owns Dunkin' Donuts. Like he has Dunkin' Donuts stores now. Like super funny. Like I learned from him. We talk about the stock market and stuff. So long story short, I enjoy training him. So I do it. And he even said the other day, he was like, oh, I don't do the trap bar that often. I usually do the bar at the gym, but like this makes my back feel better. And I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Like if it makes you feel better and you can do it more often, then that's fine. I don't advise people to stay away from something like I hate the adage of like, well, if the stove was on and you touched it and you burned yourself, you wouldn't go back and touch the stove.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would find out why it burned and I would turn it off. Like I would see what the cause of that issue is. I wouldn't just say, don't ever deadlift again because it hurts your back. Well, it's hurting your back for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like if you really want to do the barbell deadlift because you feel it in your hamstrings more, then we're going to do it. If you don't have to do it though, to answer your question.
Yeah.
If you don't like doing it, and that's the biggest thing we fight about in strength and conditioning all the time. It's like, oh, well, the trap bar doesn't hit the hamstrings as much as a barbell. Well, if I'm doing a hamstring targeted exercise, like if I have an athlete do trap bar for their main movement and we're hitting heavy RDLs later on, then problem solved. I hit their hamstrings.
Mm-hmm.
Like just don't say things are for something that they don't do and you're fine.
Yeah.
Like don't do the trap bar and say I'm doing this because it hits my hamstrings. Well, no, that's not true in theory when you compare it to a regular deadlift.
Yeah.
If you say you do it because you like to deadlift a little more weight, it's a little more comfortable for you, and then you hit your hamstrings in another way, then that's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's a lot of behavior in the average gym space that just happens because people feel like they have to do it that way because it's always been that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just find that when I use a trap bar, my back just feels like it's in such a better position and I can do it. And like normally if I'm deadlifting with a barbell, I'll feel soreness in my lower back and I don't have it at all when I use the trap bar. So that's why I personally like to use the trap bar.
Yeah. It's just, it's more advantageous from a mechanical standpoint of where the weight's positioned at your sides versus being fully anterior in front of you. There's obviously more knee flexion, which is going to make it less, but like, that's the thing too. Like you can do a trap bar two different ways. I can coach you right now to do a more knee dominant, knee bent trap bar deadlift. And I can coach you to do a really hinge dominant trap bar deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
I can cue you to bend your knees less. And we like to tell kids to do an RDL down to the bar. And then you get in position and you lift with more of your hamstrings and your posterior chain. Or you can squat it a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It depends how you use it. Like I can have you, like I said before, flip the handles over and do a low bar trap bar and grill your hamstrings.
Yeah. Yeah. The hinge on the trap bar can happen, as you're saying, in so many different positions that it hits your legs. I'll do it where it's more of a squat sometimes, like you were saying, where it feels like a more quad dominant movement.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's still using a lot of your hamstrings, but like it's always in comparison to what?
Yeah, for sure.
like if you make the assertion that it's using less of your hand, like someone can say, oh, it's not a quad dominant movement. Well, no shit. We're saying it uses less of your hamstrings than a regular RDL.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think that's, people get caught up in that, I think.
Yeah.
Gerry, where does nutrition fall into all this from your coaching perspective? Like, do kids ask for stuff?
Yeah. So we have, Julian's been with me for 4 years, and it'll be 4 years in April. And he does he competed as a bodybuilder for a little bit. He's our age. Competed as a bodybuilder for a little bit, all natural, like just naturally had an inclination towards nutrition and learning. So he got precision certified. So one of the best certs you can get. So he's not an RD. Like he's not out there, telling you like, a cup of oats in the morning, whatever. Like he's not giving you that breakdown, but he's, helping you set up your macros. He gives the kids, guidance in terms of the things they should be looking to eat. We do have a service where you can pay monthly and, get updated macros, a food sample, like a food list and whatever it is. But it's a big part, to answer your question about how big it is. Like, man, like the difference you notice and what the kids are able to accomplish when they train, if they've eaten the right stuff before they've come in. Like you have kids come in, you're like, it's like 3 p.m. and like they go to do a vertical jump and it sucks.
Yeah.
And you're like, what'd you eat today? I had saltine crackers at noon. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Like,
good luck.
What did you eat for breakfast today? And the kid literally does not remember. You don't remember that? Like, I'm like, what are you kidding me? Like, I don't understand. It doesn't.
His name Harrison Gray.
I can't. It doesn't register for me. Like the ice rink that we're located in has a snack bar restaurant hybrid type thing. And they have these rice bowls where they make the rice with like chicken, salmon, whatever it is. The sales have gone up so much since I've been there because I eat a lot of them. And the kids see that and like, it's like, they kind of want to, they think it's cool and whatever. But like we have a lot of kids that go and play hockey or they'll skate, practice, do a lesson and come up and train afterwards. And the difference it makes if they have like a banana and a protein shake before they come and train is gigantic. Especially like the skinnier hard gainers. If you don't have, available glycogen to use as energy, you're going to just never build any muscle mass.
Totally.
That's like that common sense 101 thing, right? Like, glycogen stores are your, main source of energy to fuel your muscles when you train. If you don't have that or it runs out or you're not replenishing that, like he even tells kids like, throughout your training, sometimes it can be beneficial to have something to sip on.
Right.
You're going to start just using lean mass to like get powered up to do what you have to do.
Yeah. Do you, are you into like stand efforting in the vertical diet at all? Like, would you ever have an athlete eat like ground beef or bison rice before they train? Or do you think that's like too heavy?
No, I don't. I think that's fine. Like we would tell kids, if you're eating an hour and a half before you train, getting a good carb source and protein is pretty important. I don't know if I'd ever tell a kid to go eat bison from the standpoint of the fact that like, they're going to look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Like it's because you're dealing with a high school kid, the efficacy of it, and it's really good. Yeah. But like, you gotta fight the battle of what's really good and what can they get their hands on. And like, what are they going to like, bro, I'm not kidding you. You go tell a mom to buy bison for their kid. They're going to be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
Because they don't get it. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Like
if
I was working with you, if I was training you, yeah, you can get more in detail with stuff like that. Right. But to answer your question about like, bro, like chicken, rice, beef, right? Like that stuff is, I would love to do an experiment one day and have a kid come in and train without eating beforehand. And then mark the % difference in what they can do if they have a good meal, like you just mentioned. Like,
oh yeah.
We even tell them after they train, that's good stuff, that's stuff that they want to be consuming. You got me. You tweeted about bison the other day, and I was like, I want to try it. You got me wanting to try it now. When you showed like the fat to protein ratio.
Well, that's what's so interesting, right? Is it's like you're taught that chicken breast is the go-to for bodybuilders because it's so lean and a great source of protein. it's like bison has more protein and it's leaner and there are far more amino acids in it. So it's just interesting, like what goes mainstream versus what.
I didn't know that the amino acid content's higher too.
Yeah.
That's another thing we get on kids about, like, oh, like, coach, I go buy BCAAs. I'm like, dude, if you eat the right way, you're good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most wasted supplements there is.
Mm-hmm.
And nutrients from whole foods gets absorbed at a much higher percentage than any sort of supplementation, because like your body is obviously, it's a communication network. And like if something goes in the body that is not like in its natural form, it just shows up. It doesn't get absorbed nearly as well as, say, like something that has all the different full components of, taking a bite out of something. So, that's something that I think that most people are just, it is tough because bringing something to the gym to eat immediately afterwards is not mainstream or easy to do, because like not everyone wants to eat something that's been sitting around for an hour plus.
But it's like, how bad do you want to get? Do you want to get results?
Yeah,
like,
true. And the results, I think you get some seriously different results if you have whole foods right after you eat. I legitimately think that there's a big difference.
Yeah, no, it's like, the kid, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Dude, you're 16. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Your job is to go to school and play sports.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have a mom, dude. Like, hey, mom, I need chicken. She'll make you chicken.
Yep.
Like, she'll make rice for you, put it in a container.
Yeah. And your results will be way better. I remember in college just like gravitating towards the protein shakes and the pre-workouts and the supplements. And like the whole time I should have just been cooking my meals or eating real food after I've trained, because the few years post college, it's like the gains that I feel like I've made just eating real food afterwards. It's night and day difference, to your point.
I tell the kids that all the time. Like, if you put the effort in to just get that stuff set and ready to go, it's gigantic.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see it starts to rub off on them. Like, they get they see that it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to teach them or get them to do something as much as experience does in that sense.
Right.
Meaning, like, I'm going to sit here and tell you to do something, and you're just going to be like, that requires effort.
Yeah.
And you don't know any better. Ignorance is bliss, because like the training you're doing, the peak level you are at right now, that's good to you. But that one day you eat before you train and like it's way better, or when you start to consistently do those things and bring the food in and do all you need to do with that, and the number on the scale starts going up, you're just addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
I have kids we have a fridge in the gym. I have kids that come in with a whole thing wrapped in a bag, like they're ready to go. And then guess what? Peer pressures could be positive sometimes.
Yes.
For sure.
Oh, like you don't eat when you don't have food with you. The kid's like, oh, am I a loser? I don't have food with me. What am I doing? Like, seriously.
Yeah. I know.
Like, that senior's jacked. He eats after he's done training. I should do that.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing too, is like positive peer pressure. If the person who's leading the way is doing everything against the grain, or is willing to put himself out there in that position where he's throwing something in the fridge and doesn't really care because the results that he's getting, everyone else is just going to follow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, especially the older kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the younger ones are like, I'm going to do whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got good young guys, good young leaders in there who kind of set the tone?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say this all the time. If you want to scale what you're doing in this field, you need to really, really, really instruct and explain and teach things, because if you do that, you end up having like 30 assistant coaches that you don't have to pay.
Right.
I have 3 actual trainers, probably like 30 of them that aren't actually on staff, because like a kid could come in and they're new, and I could ask 3 people like, hey, go explain that to them, please.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge.
And we're like, I say this all the time. If you're not, I was telling my mother this the other day. I was like, if you're not a good kid, you don't last at our gym. You're not going to get along with the kids because they're all there working hard and doing well. If you're going to be slacking off, they're going to make fun of you.
Yeah.
It's like there's still that thing out there, unfortunately, where it's like cool to not give a shit.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but it's not cool to not give a shit when everybody in your presence gives a shit.
Definitely. Absolutely. Gerry, one last question out that I was curious about. So you were you were talking earlier about not having enough food prior to getting to the gym. Have you seen a similar thing with sleep? Like if kids show
Oh my
up
God. Yeah.
and you see that they're tired, they're just like,
It's just funny when you don't ask them
yeah.
and then you go do like their testing day
Hmm.
and the numbers suck and you're like, well, what happened? Like we hear all different kinds of stuff. I had to run 3 miles at practice today. I got 4 hours of sleep last night. It's midterm week and I didn't sleep at all. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
And that's why so many of these colleges and pro organizations are doing readiness testing.
Interesting.
Like you have a max vert and you have to be within a certain percentage of it to be allowed to train at a high level that day.
That's interesting. Readiness testing. I've never heard of that before.
I like that concept.
So if you drop below a certain percentage, you're in the red and you're doing recovery.
Wow.
If you are yellow, it's moderate. And if you're like within an inch or two or close to it, you're good.
Have you thought of like, what could we do as general population instead of a vert? Because we don't have like a vert test that we could do, but what would be a good readiness test that we could gauge?
Grip
Strength.
Yeah. If you want to make it simple, you don't have like a dynamometer or whatever it is to do that. We do a simple test. We throw fat grips on a pair of dumbbells.
Okay.
And just time a hold, max hold. So like what you pick a standard weight that you do each time. So we do 35s and they hold it as long as they can. The idea being if you want to look at grip as like a strength number, I did the age old argument. Like if I could do 225 on the bench for 15, and then I could do it for 20, the next time after, odds are my max output's higher because it just means it's less of a percentage of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
So like if I can make the argument, like if I can do 30 dips, max reps, and then do 40 the next time, my strength is probably higher because it means my body weight is less of a percentage of my max strength, which means I can do more reps.
Yep.
So like if you can hold the 35s with the fat reps for a minute and then do it for a minute and 15 the next time, it means your overall strength got better because now that 35 pounds is less to you than it used to be.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a simple way to do it. I mean, I think a lot of gyms not even have like the handheld squeeze things.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like all these little like quantifiable metrics to actually track your progress. That sounds so simple when you say it that way, but the majority of people just aren't doing it a lot. It's mostly like a guessing game for 99% of people, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, not to little cheap plug for Bennett here, Harry, but his stuff he's doing with his planners.
Yeah,
in terms of like
machete
goal oriented stuff for like the average gym goer.
Yeah,
absolutely. You gotta, I mean, the old adage, if you're not tracking it, you can't improve it. Like very
and it's also like how disciplined and motivated are you? Like, are you the person that no matter what goes to the gym because you don't feel good unless you do?
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Totally.
Like if you're a person that like I train 5 days a week, probably like I feel like a piece of shit when I'm not training the day. I have to take off.
Yeah.
But I feel like a total waste of life when I don't go. If that's you don't need to maybe track things as much because you have a motivation, or not even the motivation, the discipline is there. If you're a person that lacks a little bit of that, having something to track and show you're improving to motivate you to go to the gym is a pretty good idea.
Yes.
Love it. Do you guys?
It can be simple. Real quick, one last thing, like jump above a chin-up bar and hold as long as you can. That's a great relative strength metric for your whole full body.
Yeah.
So like weigh yourself and do that and compare your body weight to the hold. If you gain weight and that hold goes up, it means you're putting some good muscle on in the gym.
Right. It's a constant, right? Like your relative strength is what's, I mean, you obviously don't want to balloon up and put on bad weight, but if you, for whatever reason do, and your relative strength stays above that baseline,
it means it's contributing muscle. Like it's good. Right. And that's what we do with our kids. All our kids do a weigh-in, either max rep chin up or max hold chin up, sprint speed, vertical jump. We do what we call a static vertical, where you go hands on hips and paws at the bottom. So it's more of like strength based. And then we do the grip. Those are our tests.
Beautiful.
So like you can compare if they go from 120 to 135 and their max chin-ups goes from 10 to 8, we're in trouble. That's when we look at them and say, do you got to do something different with your diet? Something's not up. Something's not right.
I was going to say, do you see that a lot?
No, it's luckily from our perspective, and I don't mean luckily because like there's a method to making it go the way you want it to go. Unfortunately, I would say we don't have that problem a lot of the times because kids don't eat enough.
Gotcha.
That's like a really good test, like for the average gym goer who like goes out and has beers on the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, am I getting out of shape?
Right.
Or even better yet, like, am I going to the gym and doing all like 15 rep sets and building size? It's not, I hate to use this word because it's overused, functional.
Yep.
Like, is the size that I'm building making me a better moving and stronger human?
Right.
Or is it just excess baggage that I'm carrying around?
Right.
Like, I'm 265 and I did 15 dead hang pull-ups, chin-ups the other day.
Yeah, there you go.
So like, so like, but that's like, use that.
Yeah, totally. Yo, I've got one last question here. It's a simple one. When you've got Challenger Strength University, the beautiful Sterling facility, what's going to be the quote on the wall? What are you putting up there?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's going to be, I'm going to paraphrase.
Okay.
It's from Nathaniel Hawthorne, I think. No, do I have that right? I'm going to say it. We'll look it up.
We'll fact check.
A man cannot wear two faces, one to himself and one to the general public, without eventually being confused as to which one is true.
I like it. And if it's not Nathaniel Hawthorne, it's Gerry Defilippo.
I'm going to be really, I think the Nathaniel Hawthorne thing is completely, really, really wrong. And I want to correct it before we go off this. If a man wears one face to himself, here, I'm going to read it. Oh, it is Nathaniel Hawthorne from the Scarlet Letter, huh? No man for any considerable period can wear one face to himself and another to the multitude without finally getting bewildered as to which one may be true.
I love it. It speaks true. That's it. That's a true gym goer's mentality. I love it.
And even for you want to build a brand online, be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Be genuine. That's it, man. Well, this is awesome, Gerry. Thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely gonna have to do a part 2 because I feel like there's so many other questions that we want to dig into. But I mean, your knowledge in the space is incredible, and it's been really motivating to us, honestly.
I mean, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the kind words. And as I told you guys, it's been cool to kind of see your growth in the Twitter world and what you've been able to accomplish. I think it's really important to get that message out there to people that it can be done. I think in a time and in a place where there's so many people out there putting out bad information that have big platforms, it's important to equip people with the tools of how to grow on social media so they can put the good stuff out there. And I think if we can just continue to pass that on in terms of like how you build something and build an audience, and you can do that, it allows more people to get better information out there. Like when PETA has 1 million followers on Twitter and they could put out some bullshit. We have a guy with maybe one day you have 100,000, you could combat some of their stuff with some actual facts. I liken what I do to that. Like Bleacher Report puts out some eyewash training. I can, talk to a lot of people now and tell them why it's not ideal. So I think it's important.
100%.
That's why we have guests like you on the show. So bringing credibility to our name and also helping our audience, get some knowledge as well. So Gerry, this has been wonderful, dude. I'm really glad we got to do this, and we'll talk soon.
For sure, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.